if they're right and they hit on him, we're talking about an unbelievable value, and the guy is the answer to Mahomes' blindside maybe for the rest of his career. Like,
Right.
that is worth a huge, 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 huge thought about, should we take him here? The flip side of that is if you're wrong and you miss,
Right.
you are going to try to make this work for at least a few years here. And now you're in that position for years on it.
It's That Football Show here on KC Sports Network. Tucker Franklin hanging out with Matt Verderame on a look. We didn't have a Saturday show. NFL draft in the books. We got plenty to talk about here on today's show. Thank you to our partners, Holiday Distillery and Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon, which I always keep on my desk, rocking the Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond hat today as well. Matt, I don't know if you caught any of the stuff that any of the shenanigans we were up to over there at Holiday Distillery, but boy, oh boy, day 3 got a little loose, and the draft show got a little wild over there at Holiday Distillery as, look, I'll say, the Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon was flowing on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right, the Knicks lose to the Pistons. The Holiday bourbon is going to be, it's going to be gone in the Verderame household.
That's fair, yeah.
Disgraceful outfit. Anyway, the Knicks, not the bourbon. Get the bourbon. Yeah, it's I tuned in and I saw Matt Lane and Ken Swanson dressed up like overgrown children on a Halloween.
And
I lost any respect I had for either one of them is gone. But the good news is I didn't have much to begin with.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, no, you guys look like you had a good time. I covered day 3 from my office for SI, and I thought it would be over by 5:00 Central Time. So I was like, all right, like, I scheduled the court. I rented a court out to play pickleball at 5:00. And I was like, that'll be my unwinding. And then I'll have about 37 beers. And as it turned out, the draft is not over by 5:00. So I finished up the draft from the pickleball courts because I lost the will to live around pick 225. And then also realized I couldn't even go out drinking after because I had some family event I completely forgot about. So, yep, that's right. That's right. And then my family on Sunday, I've for anyone who's unaware, I think most people are probably aware, just when they watch the show or they listen to my pod or whatever. But I've had 3 bulging discs in my back for like 7 months.
Yeah,
getting shots or whatever. And the reason I bring this up is, so if anybody's ever had sciatica, a lot of fun. It's like the worst Charlie horse you've ever had, just nonstop down your left leg, or at least it's what it feels like for me. So my wife on Sunday was like, hey, it'd be a great idea. Let's go hiking. I was like, listen, like, you are obviously aware of the fact that, like, it's hard for me to get upstairs. Like, maybe, like, I don't know. No. Like, no, let's go hiking. So I did it. And it was a nice day with the family. But by the end of it, my leg, if I could have sawed it off, I would have done it.
Yeah.
So that was my weekend. I ended up, I will say, I went to this place called the Root Beer Stand, which is like a restaurant, actually. Got like a little, like a mom and pop, like get a burger for $5 type of place. Yeah. Known for their root beer. They sell root beer by the gallon jug there. Like, clearly, like, just get like gallons of milk and then like clean it out, or like gallons of like orange juice and clean it out and fill it up. I bought a gallon jug of root beer. And I found myself at 1 a.m. just drinking from the gallon of root beer. And I do not think it's the healthiest thing for you, but I got to tell you, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I might have to go hiking and risk my leg just for the gallon of root beer every once in a while.
That sounds pretty sick. We obviously had a very busy weekend in KC Sports Network. We were live for, I think, 17 hours is what it came out to be. Every single pick of the 2025 NFL Draft, we had you guys covered there. And at KC Sports Network, a ton of content for you guys as well that we have. We did a recap show on Sunday, hosted an incredible party. Thank you to everybody who was a subscriber that came out to our little party over there at Holiday Distillery. Wonderful hosts. that we have up there in Weston, Missouri. But look, it's time to look ahead, turn the page on the 2025 NFL Draft. I'm sure later in the week we're going to do more of like an AFC West or AFC contenders type look at what their draft classes and kind of how they shape up. But today, I think it's probably good for us to spend a good amount of time on the Chiefs class and as a whole, and kind of some other news that's going on, the bigger stories that are going on coming out of the NFL draft. I think so as well. But Matt, let's start with the big one. Let's start with the elephant in the room, right? Because we have kind of, for better or for worse, have become we were the anti-offensive lineman in round one podcast on KC Sports.
Yes.
We were about the only ones that were like, I don't really feel too good about that. And I'll say Kent Swanson, despite his best efforts, love Kent, has been trying to convince me that everything will be okay with this pick. I was about the only one in the Holiday Distillery, and probably maybe in Weston, Missouri, that was after Josh Simmons was picked. I was still like, I just don't feel very good about that. Matt, I'm curious your reaction and kind of if your takes have evolved, I will say, since the famous clip that people started to go back to as well. I don't know if you saw that. That started to make its rounds again.
Sure it did.
Which rightfully so, it should have. Like, if people weren't going to go back for it, I would kind of worry about our podcast, right? If people are like, oh no, people aren't thinking about our podcast where they got to go back to stuff. Maybe I'll play the clip right here. I don't know. We'll see. But if you missed it, this is what Matt said.
The offensive lineman thing in the first round, like I am willing to stake my reputation on this, whatever reputation I have. They're not taking an offensive lineman in the first round.
It just doesn't feel right to me.
They're not going to. Man, look, I've talked to a million people about this around the team, around the league. Like, the offensive tackle class is generally seen as brutal.
Yeah.
I will be boy. There's a reason that Jalen Moore was announced the second free agency opened up. The Chiefs are like, got him, he's ours. All these people are like, they're going to draft a tackle. Play him where? Where the hell is he playing? They didn't give Jalen Moore 2 years and $30 million to be a swing tackle. And for everybody who's like, well, they'll wait till next year when Juwan Taylor's gone. They're not using their first round pick to have the guy sit behind Juwan Taylor for a year. They're not doing that. By the way, most of these guys have like 32.5-inch arms. I can tell you right, I can promise you, the Chiefs are not taking anybody with 32-something arms and putting them a tackle. That's not going to happen. And everybody and their mother seems to love putting Josh Simmons with the Chiefs. Like,
man, they do.
Josh Simmons is coming off a torn patella, has 33-inch arms. There's also some noise about, like, who is he as a dude? Is that going to be part of it too? And let's face it, if you're using a pick on a first-round player, like, you care about all that stuff.
Now, Matt, do you have any evolutions of that?
No, not really. I mean, I mean, look, obviously,
I think it's fair.
The good news is I didn't have a reputation. I am surprised, obviously, that they decided to go that route. I mean, I think the one thing we had talked about throughout the couple weeks leading up to it was, if all these defensive tackles are gone, then at that point, all bets are somewhat off here. Because if those, Nolan, Harmon, Grant, if all those guys are off the board, when they get on the clock at 31, eventually, of course, they pick the 32. Then they could go a variety of ways. You and I have talked about the fact I would have loved for them to have taken Luther Burden. That would have been
absolutely
me. That would have been my pick. Now, maybe history bears up. Maybe Luther Burden is a guy in the NFL. Maybe the Chiefs ended up making the right decision. I still feel like I would have went with Luther Burden. Now, it's made better, in my opinion, by the fact they got Jalen Royals in the 4th round when they probably should have had no business at all being able to take him at that point in the draft.
100%.
So that does help. My big concern with Simmons is the same now as it was a month ago, as it was 2 months ago. You're taking a 320-pound player on a torn patella tendon to work out. And I get it. The Chiefs medical staff obviously feels good enough about it that they're going to clear him. And, they were even talking about maybe he's ready for camp, which would be surprising. I mean, Albert Breer, who's about as plugged into anybody as anybody at Ohio State, my colleague at SI, was like, look, might be till August. Now you could also sit there and say, well, okay, if he's ready August 1st compared to the beginning of camp, what's the difference?
That's like
week,
mid-camp.
I mean, so I guess it depends on part of August. if he's ready by camp and he's fully healthy and everything, I mean, that helps. My feeling on it is Josh Simmons is a bigger gamble than a lot of these other guys would have been. Now, the flip side of that is, and this is why they took him, he's also the highest upside guy of anybody that was at that spot.
Right.
Okay. And that's why they did it. I mean, I felt very strongly that if one of those D tackles was there, that they were going to take one of them. I still kind of feel that way, quite frankly, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, obviously, they ended up taking Simmons. And if he ends up becoming a great player for the Chiefs, I'm more than happy to play that clip and laugh and have a good time with it. I mean, but I just, me personally, 320-pounder on a patella who also has all these concerns like, hey, like, does he care about football?
Yeah.
Like, who is this guy? Is he going to be somebody who they've constantly got to motivate? Like, that stuff in the first round worries the hell out of me. It just does. I would not have done it. I still gave them a B+ for their class because I thought I love the rest of their picks. And I think I will say this. Look, Simmons' talent is fairly undeniable.
Absolutely.
It's not about whether he's talented. Like, I'm not arguing that he's not good. He's a very talented player. The question becomes, can he be healthy again and play at that level? And are these character concerns overblown, or is that something where you're constantly fighting with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, hopefully for their sake that he comes back healthy and the character concerns are overblown and the guy's an all-pro. But for me, when you're taking that big of a risk in the first round, I have concerns about that. I'm not going to just change that opinion because the Chiefs took the guy.
100%. I'm right there with you in terms of my biggest concern with Josh Simmons is his knee. And I think, well, I'm going to call my opinion valid is what I'm going to do. I think that's a very fair concern to have about a guy who has a patellar knee injury who, can I remind you the last Chiefs that had a patellar knee injury, Matt? Do you know the last Chiefs offensive lineman to have a patellar knee injury? Lucas Niang was the last one. Yep, never did. So I think that's not nothing. Dr. Jesse Morris, I know, Twitter doctor, obviously, but he tweeted out a very reliable study. It looked like with a .gov link, so that's pretty good. About just kind of patellar tendon injuries with offensive linemen, and the return to play for quadricep tendon injuries were greater than a patellar tendon injury at 55.4%. That means 45% of NFL players who suffer a patellar tendon tear never return to the field, never mind return to the previous level or elite level. Right. That is the hesitancy for me. You watched the film. We turned on the film. Look, Kent Swanson was trying as hard as he could to convince me that this was a home run slam dunk pick. Do I think, Matt, as you mentioned, I think the talent is absolutely there with Josh Simmons. You look at the tape, you're like, wow, this is a top 15 pick.
Yep.
But what makes me so hesitant about this pick, every time they started, Kent or Maddie or anyone who tries to talk about this pick, everything positive they start to say starts with, if he's healthy.
Yeah, right.
And that makes that just kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. It just doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy about my first round pick. And I want to be stoked about my first round pick. I want to be seeing him on the field. I want to be wanting to buy a jersey, even if he is an offensive lineman. Like, I do think Josh Simmons, phenomenal talent. I'm worried about the return to play. Can he be at that high level? Can the range of motion be the same thing? If you do get that guy you're seeing on film, absolute steal. I think it's the biggest steal of the draft if you get that guy on film.
Could be, yeah.
I don't know if you get that guy. That's my biggest hesitation with it. And I'm not saying that I hate the pick. I'm just maybe I'm just skeptical or reserved about how, like, the expectations I want to put on Josh Simmons. I don't know if that's unfair necessarily to think about that.
Well, it's not unfair. I mean, look, I gave the grade, I believe, on I gave a C+ for the pick. Yeah. And that grade kind of reflects, in my opinion, a wait and see approach to it. I don't know. I didn't give it an F. I didn't give it an A. I gave it a middling pick or middling grade because it could turn out to be a great pick. It could also turn out to be a pick that in 2 years from now, you're like, why did they do what they did? Because he's hurt and he can't play, or he's nowhere near the same guy. And, the downside too of it is if it doesn't work out, you're kind of stuck now for a few years at left tackle. Like,
100%.
You have tied your hopes to him and to some degree Jalen Moore here. And if that doesn't work, you're screwed. Like, you're not taking another left tackle next year in the draft now. Like, you are invested at this position. And look, that's fine. If they wanted to make that choice, and of course, obviously they did, that's fine. I said, God, I don't know what the hell it was a month ago. Like, I probably shouldn't have been as strong in the way I worded it, that I just really did not think they were going to take a tackle. Fine. When you talk as much as we do, you're occasionally going to do stuff like that. I mean, but that being said, my overarching point was that I just think it's a massive risk.
Huh?
It is a massive risk to take a guy who's 320 pounds on a bad knee, and you're hoping he's healthy. Now, again, if he's healthy, yeah. But here's the rub of that. If he's healthy, he wouldn't have been at 32.
Yeah.
He would have been. I mean, I would argue Kelvin Banks went ninth. I bet you Josh Simmons, if he's healthy, is a top 10 pick in the class because he's better than Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks' tape is atrocious. Okay. If he was healthy, that kid's going in the top 9 picks.
Yeah.
But he's not out. That's the point. And there are character concerns. I think I mentioned this on this pod earlier in the month, but like when I was in the Breakers at Palm Beach down for the owners meetings, I mean, I had a coach, apropos of nothing, say to me, I wouldn't take that kid. There's no way. And he was talking about his character. He was talking about his personality. Like, we weren't even talking about Josh Simmons. Like, it just came up as a guy in the draft. Now, does that mean that guy's right and that the Chiefs aren't? No, but it does mean like there are people in the league that were just like, I'm not touching that guy. I'm not. So that is it concerning? Yeah. I mean, listen, I get why they did it. They have been a sieve at left tackle for years now.
Yes.
They've either been a sieve or it's been a 1-year Band-Aid. It's been like Donovan Smith or they can't play at all. Right. Okay. I understand why they did it. And again, if they're right and they hit on him, we're talking about an unbelievable value, and the guy is the answer to Mahomes' blindside maybe for the rest of his career. Like, that is worth a huge, 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 huge thought about should we take him here. The flip side of that is if you're wrong and you miss, you are going to try to make this work for at least a few years here. And now you're in that position for years on it. So that's where I stand now. I think overall, I think the class was excellent.
Yeah.
And if Simmons ends up panning out, that class is an A. Okay. But to me, it's almost like an incomplete. You don't know what he's going to look like off the patella. But if he's healthy, then yes, it's a steal. If he's not healthy, then we're sitting here going, all right, well, I mean, they knew the risks and they took a chance, and it is what it is.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Are you ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs? Well, check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition. And yeah, that includes prize picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6. Plus, even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get 50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Here's what you got to do. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. The other part that goes into is they did trade back. Like, if they would have traded up for him, like, it would have made me feel worse. Like, again, they traded back one spot and picked up an extra pick.
Yeah.
So, because they were because they basically cornered the Eagles into trading with him because they didn't want anyone else to trade with the Chiefs to get Jahad Campbell. So, I mean, look, I think the Chiefs played that great. Like, I think that was the right move to do it because they knew that they weren't going to go get their guy. They knew Josh Simmons wasn't going to go off the board there. The study that I was referencing earlier is from the National Library of Medicine, so I feel pretty good referencing that study in terms of it being peer reviewed from 2024 as well. So it looks like it was submitted. Let me see the dates here. Yes, in July of 2024, that was submitted about quadricep and patella tendon knee injuries in offensive linemen. And kind of some interesting that they're more common in offensive linemen. Patella knee injuries. I never really thought about that, but I think was it Jimmy Graham also had a patella tendon injury, came back, and he was pretty good after that. But like that's like the only one you can really point to that like came back from one and was like a pretty solid. Maybe it was
I have to look.
as well, but yeah.
I mean, listen. The bottom line is when you're talking about a knee injury for a guy the size of Josh Simmons, it's just it's like when centers in the NBA have foot injuries.
Yeah,
tend to get more of it.
100%.
I mean that's the. I mean, patella injury is probably the scariest injury there is, along with an Achilles. And that's now the upside of it. He's really young.
He's young.
He's not 35. Like that
helps.
Early 20s. So that will certainly help. It happened in mid-October, so he's been rehabbing all this way.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, again, I get why they did it. I was adamant that I didn't think they would do it because I felt like they would take one of these defensive tackles. When all those D tackles went off the board, then it became a little bit more of like, okay, well, if you're not going to do that, which they weren't going to take a D tackle at that point, there weren't any guys valued at that spot. Then you get into, okay, well, they're not going to take a corner there. Will Johnson's medicals were a disaster, so you're not doing that. Once Hampton went off the board, like I don't think you're taking a running back there at 32. That felt like it would have been high.
Right.
I really, when they got to the pick, to be completely transparent, I basically thought, okay, it's going to be Burden or Simmons. It's one of them.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been shocked if it was anybody else. I just didn't see them. I didn't think there was an edge rusher they were taking at 32. I didn't know. It felt like, okay, this is either going to be Simmons or Burden. And quite honestly, when they got to the pick, I figured it was probably going to be Simmons. Because it felt like at that point, Burden, it seemed like it had lost so much steam that he was probably going to end up being in the second round. And I think, the Simmons thing it was like, all right, they're probably going to just take him here. Probably going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. Like the way the board fell, I'm not surprised you took him.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, look, it's the ultimate boom or bust. Where it's either going to be, can't believe they did this. You knew the risks, and look what happened. Or, man, they got so fortunate that he fell to them, and this is a guy who is going to anchor their blind side for a decade. And if it's that, then that's hitting the lottery.
Yeah. Just to put a bow on this before we take a break and talk about the rest of the Chiefs class here. I do want to just kind of look at how this board did shape out. When you talk about the positions that the Chiefs did want to take, obviously nobody thought the Chiefs were going to take Mason Graham. He's the first D tackle off the board, as Abdul Carter goes off at number 3 as well. So 3 and 5 right there. And then you had Mimbo to the Jets. I don't think that was a big surprise there. Kevin Banks, as you said, went 9 to the Saints. Then you had Michael Williams go to the Niners at 11. That's another edge rusher that maybe the Chiefs could have been in the mix for. I don't know. Kenneth Grant, a guy who was mocked to the Chiefs by several people, went top 15 to the Miami Dolphins. So he goes off the board early. I think that was kind of the sign of like, okay, the D tackles aren't going to fall like you think they were, with Kenneth Grant going there. Jalen Walker going a few picks later, and then Walter Nolan at 15. 15 was Jalen Walker. Walter Nolan was 16. Shamar Stewart was 17. So there was a little bit of run on some defensive linemen there with thankfully Gray Zabel went off the board before the Chiefs were on the clock. People kept mocking Gray Zabel to the Chiefs, and I thought that was so dumb. I thought that was the worst one that was ever out there. Derek Harmon went 21 to the Steelers. See, like that was a team that you thought could be a quarterback. 9 was a team you thought could be a quarterback, and they both went defensive linemen. So that kind of messes up your board a little bit.
Well,
there.
Saints went offensive lineman, but at the point,
or offensive lineman. Yeah, sorry. They both went linemen. Donovan Jackson went off before.
Minnesota.
Josh Simmons. Yeah, to the Minnesota. I think that's a good pick. He's healthy. I think that's also probably why he went before. And he's got the inside-out versatility.
The Houston Texans could have taken Josh Simmons and traded back.
Yeah, absolutely could have. Yeah. The Falcons come back in and get James Pierce Jr. Malachi Stark's the guy that I actually mocked to the Chiefs because he just fell in one of the mock drafts that I was doing I think it was in Jacksonville. The media mock draft that I did. He just fell to the Chiefs. I was like, well, I'm gonna take him. That sounds like a pretty good deal. Tyleek Williams went off the board at interior defense tackle probably a little bit earlier. Josh Connolly went at 30 or at 29. And then look, that board just shaped up to be Josh Simmons. Like if you going back and looking at it, I don't know who else it would have been. Like you mentioned Burden or something like that. The way that board fell, the two teams that we thought could take quarterbacks to push some of these guys down further just didn't. And that's just how these drafts go.
I mean, look, my opinion could have been asinine and dopish no matter what, but the way that board fell, it was like God was going to make sure I'm a dope. I mean, there was just so when they got to 32, I'm sitting there, I'm like, they're going to take him.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's an outside shot they take Burden, but they're probably going to take Josh Simmons. And that's fine. Look, you know what? Hopefully it's one of those things that we can replay on an annual basis when he's playing like an all-pro. I mean, it will not be the last time that I have an opinion where I'm just like, oh, I'm just dead wrong. It happens. Okay. I remember, watching Jonathan Baldwin's, highlight package and being like, damn, this guy's like a stud. Yeah. Nope. Terrible. And, and then thinking when they took Tyreek Hill, I was like, okay, well, just based on his story, not great. And then also this guy played at West Alabama. What?
Yeah.
And there has to be a pretty talented football player. So,
all right.
I mean, it happens. I'm not too big to laugh at myself. I mean, sometimes you're just wrong. They took him. Yeah. By the way, can we take a quick moment to the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, that's funny.
Can we just from now on do a hard knocks of the Falcons during the draft week? I would just love to have been in the room when Terry Fontenot was sitting there and he's like, listen, we might be able to get James Pierce at 46. But what if we trade up 20 spots and give up next year's first round pick to make sure that we can get him?
Right.
No, right. A year after signing a quarterback for $180 million and then drafting one at 9th overall.
Yep.
Sound business. Let's do it. Let's do it again. And they just did it. I between that and the Bengals, who I still can't figure out what the thought process was for that entire draft.
Rough.
I mean, just some wild stuff going on in the draft. Then Brandon Beane, getting super defensive yesterday. It was interesting on the radio. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that.
Brandon Beane went on WGR 550, which is I think it is the Bills' flagship station up there.
Yeah.
Went on with a couple of hosts who I'm not familiar with. I go on that radio station a lot, and I don't know those two guys. I think they're the morning guys. I usually go on the afternoons.
Gotcha.
And he went on and just started ripping into them that they, I guess, were critical that the Bills need a receiver.
Well,
and of course, they didn't take a receiver. I think maybe they took one really late. They didn't take one early on. And Beane was like, we scored the most points in the NFL last year. And this is this is so unbelievably dumb that you guys are ripping me for this. And got really super defensive about it. Really confrontational. And then went on McAfee's show and basically doubled down on all this. It was just a tour de force out of Western New York where he was
what in the world?
He was really fired up about this. He's like, well, how many dominant receivers did New England have in that run? I'm like, well, I got to tell you.
They won Super Bowls.
I mean, I know Moss and Welker didn't win the Super Bowls, but they were pretty good.
They were pretty good.
You also had Rob Gronkowski, who did win 3 of the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Who I know isn't a wide receiver, but still catches passes and stuff. Like
Semantics,
that
man.
seems relevant. They also had an unbelievable defense, and the last time I checked, Buffalo does not. So, like, maybe the fact that I got his point. You do have a very good offense. I get it, but it was also like you're very pissed off about this, and I feel like maybe you shouldn't be that angry about this. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
That draft class, also Cleveland's taking 2 quarterbacks with Shadur Sanders and also taking number 1, Dylan Gabriel before Shadur Sanders is
sign of a great process.
Hilarious, number 1. But then taking 2 quarterbacks when their quarterback room is already loaded with guys. Like not good guys, but loaded with guys. They just got bodies in that room. They said, how many bodies can we throw at this position? And we're gonna do it. And look, Shadur Sanders might be the best quarterback in that room, and he might still win the job. I don't think it's fair that Shadur Sanders fell all the way to 5th. I know that there's a lot of like outside distractions. I know he probably didn't handle the process very well, but like talent wise, he's not a 5th round quarterback. He's probably a 2nd round quarterback, maybe a 3rd round quarterback. I don't think he's a 5th round quarterback.
No, I agree. I agree with that. And yeah, I love how the Browns are the only team in NFL history to have 5 quarterbacks in the room, and none of them are starters.
Yes.
Or at least proven to be. I mean, maybe Sanders becomes that. Maybe Gabriel becomes that. But yes, like as we're sitting here, you're like, they have 5 quarterbacks, and none of them are overwhelming. There's not a single guy who, like 25 teams in the league would be, yeah, give me him to start week 1.
I'm just pulling up their draft right now.
Like my guess is it's Flacco, but is it him? Is it Pickett? Is it one of these rookies? Is it Deshaun Watson on half an Achilles?
They also picked 2 running backs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just pulled up their draft class. That's why I got distracted. It probably is Flacco. It's not going to be Kenny Pickett. He sucks. It's probably going to be Flacco with Shadur in the hunt, if that makes sense.
How funny would I completely agree with you. That's a good way to put it. How funny would it be if it is Pickett? Like if they did all this and then they get to like August 30th, no, you know what? Pickett's the best option here.
Do you think that would be Flacco's sign to hang it up? If he gets beat up by Kenny Pickett, he's like, you know what? Maybe it is time to not come back to do this.
I thought did Armand Membo, did he consider retirement when he was taken by the Jets at 7?
He probably should have. I feel bad for the dude. Look, he's made and everything, but like, man,
how great would it be like if they showed like one of those, they like the kids that stay at home, like they always have like a camera there set up for like the draft party. Yeah. How great would it be if they showed like one of these prospects and the guy's just uncontrollably devastated?
No.
Yeah. Like the agent's like trying to console him. His kid's just like running out of the house.
Okay.
They got to tackle him before he gets to the street. Like I mean, it's just there are some guys who get drafted who are like, oh my god, really?
Right. Like I gotta act like I'm stoked to go to the Jets. I gotta act like I'm stoked to go to the Saints. Tyler Shuck having to act like he's excited to go to New Orleans.
The only thing that was excited about going to New Orleans was the dog. You see a dog jumping around?
That dog was psyched.
Yeah, the dog's like, I don't know where the hell we're going. We're going somewhere better than Louisville, thank God. I mean, it's I always laugh like when Kelsey tells his draft story about how he thought the Chiefs were calling or he thought the Rams were calling him.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, I was just like, oh my God, I gotta go to St. Louis. Like, guys think like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Like think put yourself in their shoes, right? Like if you're getting drafted, let's say you don't have a team that you're like overwhelmingly like, I want to go there. You're like, man, I want to go to Miami. I want to go to LA. I want to go to New York. If you're, I want to go to Chicago. I want to go big city. Or if you're a small town guy, maybe you want to go to a place like Green Bay or Kansas City or whatever. And then you get drafted by like Cleveland. And you're like, oh my God, man.
I was going to say Jacksonville. That's a pretty good one though, too.
Duval. My God. I love how the hats for the Jaguars just said Duval with like 8 L's. And I was like, is that for Duval or the amount of losses in a row that they currently have?
Boom.
Like that. That's a fair question, I feel like. And also, it's one of those things. But I'll tell you, Jags Twitter, a sensitive group on Twitter.
Really?
Oh my God, man. Like, if you say something negative about it, they just go berserk. Like, guys, like,
Interesting.
what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do?
You're the Jags.
Yeah.
So.
What do you want me to do? Yeah. It's like when people accuse me of being a homer with the Chiefs. They're like, you're never critical of them. I'm like, first of all, you clearly don't listen to me that often.
Right.
Second of all, like, all they do is win. What am I supposed to do? Get up here and rip the crap out of Veach? Like, even like with the Simmons thing, I would not have taken him because I'm worried about the knee for a guy who's 320. Okay. Mm-hmm. That being said, I'll be the first one sitting here to tell you that Brett Veach knows more about this stuff than I do. And if Brett Veach is good with it, then fine. Like I think Brett Veach has earned that equity at this point. Like, I think this guy's the best pick. Like, I'll ride with you. All right. Like, go with God, man. Like, now, if the Browns had done that, I'm like, yeah, he's not healthy.
Right. Yeah.
But like the Chiefs did it. So you're like, okay. I mean, what am I going to do? Sit here and be like, they don't know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of got to sit there and go. And I will say on top of that, I thought overall, the draft was fantastic.
Yeah.
You also got to factor that in. I mean, maybe, hey, look, man. And they also have one thing that you don't, I don't, none of us do. They have the medicals on this kid.
100%.
In a way that, like, I can sit there and talk to somebody about, but like, they have the actual medical evaluations. Like, they are putting through a battery test. I'm not having Josh Simmons over the house and having like orthopedic at the house. Like, I don't have that ability. So I would hope that they know a hell of a lot more physically about it. So it's like, but to the point, yeah, some of these, it's like you get some of these people who have like these unbelievable, like, ironclad opinions. And look, mine was a little overstated perhaps a month, but like, I have enough of a brain to realize, like, I don't have all the information that all these teams have.
For sure.
That's reality. That's what it is.
Yeah. So we'll be back later on in the week. We'll talk a little bit more about some AFC contender drafts. We might dive into Buffalo's a little bit more, Cincinnati's, as you kind of alluded to, all kind of confusing classes. Matt, I think you and I kind of had a conversation of like, this is where the Chiefs could really separate themselves with this draft. And they might have done it. They got a draft that makes a whole lot more sense than those other two teams do. We got to talk about Baltimore's draft as well. But that'll be up on next Saturday show. Maybe we'll release that Friday. Who knows? Who knows how we're feeling? But that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of That Football Show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us as we are kind of in the after process. This is now the off season now, truly, Matt, as we get a little bit of an off season here as I think schedule comes out May 14th is when the schedule comes out. We'll have plenty to talk about then. But for Matt Verderame, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will talk to you guys on Saturday. We'll see you then.